This is the brand new Alfa Romeo Giulia. This is the brand new Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. This is Alfa Romeo's answer to the BMW M3, and today we're going to see if it's any good. Now, before I dive into my review of the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, I think I finally said that right, I thought it'd be prudent to cover a brief history of the Alfa Romeo brand, since it hasn't been sold in the United States in any meaningful numbers in over 2 decades. Alfa Romeo was founded way back in 1910, and almost immediately the brand went racing, and as it turns out, they were pretty good at it. Alfa won every form of motorsports they entered, from Formula One to European touring car to Le Mans, even rallying. And Enzo Ferrari, as in the Enzo Ferrari, ran Alfa's racing arm before he decided to found Ferrari. And that sporting DNA made into every road car Alfa made. And as icing on the cake, Alfa's cars were just as beautiful as they were excellent to drive. But then one day, Alfa Romeo just stopped making those kinds of cars. Instead, they made the hideous 166 and the Me Too hatchback, which was based on a Fiat Punto. Needless to say, Alfa's glory days are in the rearview mirror at this point. And that brings us back to the Giulia Quadrifoglio, which is intended to spear at Alfa Romeo's return to greatness. And I must say, from the outside, things are looking pretty good. The Giulia is an exceedingly handsome vehicle with these chiseled cheekbones and muscular hood that's made of carbon fiber to save weight. And I even like this kind of F1 style front splitter. Now, this is Alfa, so there's a bit of Italian engineering going on, like the adaptive cruise control sensor that's just kind of been slapped on the side vent here. Most other automakers have found a way to incorporate it in the logo or behind the main grille, but Alfa Romeo put it there, so there it is. But honestly, that's the only exterior design flaw I can find with this thing. The Giulia Quadrifoglio is just a gorgeous car from every angle. In profile, the proportions are spot on with just the right amount of curves and creases. The rear end is beautiful with this carbon fiber spoiler, race car splitter, and quad exhaust outlets. And just look at these wheels, they're fantastic. When it comes to styling, the Giulia Quadrifoglio is definitely an Alfa Romeo. The interior of the Giulia Quadrifoglio looks good too. There's stitched leather on the doors and dash, Alcantara on the steering wheel and seats, and carbon fiber accents everywhere. Alfa even included a number of nice styling details, like a bright red start-stop button on the steering wheel, these fixed metal paddle shifters, and a bezel-less infotainment screen that seems to blend right into the rest of the dash. There are, however, a few problems. Now, some of these complaints might seem a little nitpicky, but keep in mind the as-tested price of this vehicle is $87,000. Now, that's a lot of money. And for that kind of money, people expect to get high-quality items. But these HVAC dials and the one for the infotainment and the vehicle settings, they just feel chintzy. They feel like they're made out of light plastic. Now, I just drove the 2019 Ram 1500, and it uses dials similar to this, but they feel so much more substantial in that, and that's a pickup truck you can get for $35,000. I'm also not that impressed with the Giulia Quadrifoglio's infotainment system. It's not that it's completely terrible, but it's just not well laid out. It doesn't feel intuitive, and there's no hard buttons for anything. So let's say you're listening to the radio and you need to input a destination to your navigation. Instead of just hitting the nav button in the center console like a normal car, you've got to go to the joystick and go back, then wheel down, and click on navigation, and then click on this again to input your destination. It just doesn't feel like Alfa's trying to make things easier for the person behind the wheel. This is not cutting down on distracted driving. And why, oh why, would Alfa fit this wide screen to the Giulia and then only reserve a tiny portion of it for the rear view camera? And the resolution is absolutely terrible. Another annoyance of the Giulia Quadrifoglio is this turn signal stock that barely sticks out farther than the paddle shifter. They could have easily extended this by just a little bit and it would have been so much easier to use. But that's just one of the quirks you have to live with when you buy an Alfa. Gorgeous Italian styling is a selling point for all Giulia models, but the real draw for the Quadrifoglio is this, a Ferrari-derived 2.9-liter twin turbocharged V6 with 505 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque. Now, for those of you keeping score at home, that's more than both the BMW M3 and the Mercedes-AMG C63S, which uses a twin turbocharged V8. Now, in proper Alfa fashion, this sends all of its power to the rear wheels, but unfortunately the only transmission available is an 8-speed automatic. But on the upside, that automatic helps this car go from 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds and hit a top speed of 191 miles an hour. I think I fancy a drive. All right, here we go. Setting off in the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. Now, the last Alfa I drove was a Giulietta 5-door, which is actually related to the Dodge Dart. So I'm hoping for a better driving experience than this. And right away, I can tell it is a better driving experience. Now, so I'm starting off in N, which is natural mode. Alfa uses this DNA mode selector system. It ends kind of the default comfort setting. The A is advanced efficiency, but I've got 505 horsepower, so I'm going to ignore that one. But I'm going to start out with normal, so we have a baseline here. First impression is it's actually more comfortable than I thought it would be. This is a hardcore sports sedan, you know, and it's actually pretty compliant. It's actually really smooth, and the steering is just really good. It's really direct and really fast. You can just, wherever you point it, this thing wants to go. And this is just in the normal mode. It's really good. But this is a sports sedan, so let's go up to D, which is dynamic. And this kind of firms up everything. The suspension gets stiffer, the steering gets a little sharper, the throttle's a little more sensitive, and you can hear it opens up the butterfly valves in the exhaust, and you can just tell this car is much happier to be in dynamic mode. It feels like this is what it was made for. The steering is so sharp. The one thing I don't like much about this particular car is it's got the optional carbon ceramic brakes, and they're really hard to use smoothly. You kind of got this inch of travel where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden they grab and you stop. It's really hard to stop smoothly in this. You kind of look like you're a student driver again. Now, in addition to just the DNA, this Quadrifoglio model's got a trick up its sleeve. If you move it all the way to the top, it's race mode. And it turns everything up to 11. It even says race mode is best experienced in manual, so I think I'll flip it over to manual. And you can just tell right off the bat, this has transformed. This is a completely different car with just a flip of a wrist. It feels just so sharp. It feels like a race car. And you can feel what everything's doing. I just lost the back end there a little bit, but it's so controllable. I can just feel where the back end is, what the front's doing. Oh, it's just great. This shouldn't be called race mode. It should be called race car mode, because that's what this feels like. Got an open stretch of road coming up here, downshift in the second, and oh my word, what a machine! Oh, this thing just goes and goes. Now, this isn't as fast as a GTR, but I recently drove one, and this, it feels similar. The way they just pull and pull, it feels like they're never going to run out of steam. It's amazing. Oh, with a road like this, I've got it set to race mode. I just don't care about anything else. I don't care that the controls feel chintzy or the turn signal stock doesn't come out far enough. This whole interior can be made out of cardboard. I don't care. I just want this driving experience. It's fantastic. I thought it would take Alfa a couple tries to get it right. I mean, they've been out of the game for a while. They've made the 4C, but it's easy to make a sports car good. It's a lot harder to make a sedan good. And I honestly thought it would take them a generation or two to knock the rust off, but they have just knocked this out of the park. This car is fantastic. So there it is, the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. Since the dawn of time, the BMW M3 has been the default vehicle of choice in this class, but I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. I was fully expecting to find a yeah but during my time with this car, but I really haven't found one. Yes, there's still some stuff Alfa needs to work out, but all the major components are here. And at the end of the day, this just feels special. I mean, it's an Alfa Romeo with a 4-leaf clover on the fender. This is a good sports sedan, full stop. As long as you don't have to own it for more than 4 years or 50,000 miles, whichever comes first. And now it's time to give the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio its grade card. In the aesthetics category, the Giulia Quadrifoglio earns a solid A. It's an extremely handsome car, but an A+ is reserved for the best of the best and something that really moves the design needle. On the tech front, the Giulia Quadrifoglio has the kind of stuff you'd expect from a luxury sedan, features like adaptive cruise control and LED lights, but the layout of the infotainment system isn't great and the backup camera is laughable. It earns a B+. The Giulia Quadrifoglio is rated at 17 miles per gallon in the city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway, which is pretty much on par with the M3 and the C63S. Still, that's decent for a 505 horsepower sports sedan, and the Quadrifoglio earns a B on our green scale. The Giulia Quadrifoglio costs just as much, if not more, than its rivals, so it's hard to give it a very high value score. But you do get more power for the money, bringing the Quadrifoglio's value score up to a B-. Add it all up, and the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio takes home an A-, a grade it should be proud to hang on the fridge. All right, time to go home. I'm out of gas.